Under the vast, star-speckled skies of the American Southwest lies the small, quiet reservation of Red Hawk. The desert stretches endlessly in every direction, the air still and thick with unspoken words and ancestral whispers. For centuries, the Red Hawk community has lived in harmony with the land, bound by traditions that run deeper than the roots of the ancient sagebrush. Taché Greyfeather, a young medicine man, feels the weight of his ancestors on his shoulders. Raised by the elders, he knows the stories of old, the whispered legends of creatures that walk between worlds. But despite his knowledge, Taché is not fully accepted by his people, who still see him as a child, despite his deep understanding of the old ways. One cold November night, everything changes. A scream echoes through the village, tearing through the silence like a blade. The body of Daniel Running Bear, the reservation's most respected hunter, is found near the outskirts of the community. His throat ripped open, his limbs twisted in impossible angles, as if torn apart by something far stronger than any human. The next morning, Taché joins the elders as they gather around Daniel's body. Their faces are pale with shock, but there is something else. A flicker of fear Taché hasn't seen before. When he asks about the tracks found near the body, human footprints that morph into coyote prints, they exchange worried glances. Finally, Grandmother Willow, the eldest of them all, whispers a name, Yenaldlushi, the Skinwalker. Taché's heart pounds in his chest. He knows what a Skinwalker is, a malevolent shapeshifter, born from dark magic and corrupted by its hunger for power. Legends say a person becomes a Skinwalker through an act of great evil, often by killing a loved one, severing their humanity forever. The elders plead with him to let it be, to stay out of the creature's path. They believe the Skinwalker cannot be stopped by mortal hands, but Taché refuses to sit idly by while his people are terrorized. He remembers the words of his grandmother: one must confront darkness with light. Despite the elders' warnings, he knows he must act. The fear that paralyzes the village drives him to seek out the truth. Taché seeks out Old Man Singing Crow, the last shaman who dares to speak openly about the Skinwalkers. With a deep, gravelly voice and eyes clouded by wisdom and sorrow, Singing Crow hands Taché a bundle of sacred herbs, a silver blade, and a talisman etched with symbols of protection. The Skinwalker feeds on fear, Taché. Singing Crow tells him it knows your deepest regrets, your darkest thoughts. It will come to you as someone you love, someone you trust. Do not believe what your eyes see or what your ears hear. Trust only in your heart. Armed with these tools and the shaman's warning, Taché steps out into the cold desert night, his senses on edge. The desert stretches out before him like a silent ocean of shadows. As he walks, he hears the faint cry of a coyote in the distance, followed by a voice, familiar, soft, and painfully close to his heart. It's his younger sister, Lila, calling his name, her voice trembling with fear. Taché stops dead in his tracks. Lila had died over a year ago, her life claimed by illness. The sound of her voice pulls at his heart, nearly unraveling his resolve. But then he remembers the shaman's words and forces himself to focus on the talisman in his hand. He whispers a prayer under his breath, willing the image of his sister to disappear. From the darkness, a twisted figure emerges, its body contorting and shifting. One moment, it wears Lila's face, her eyes pleading with him. The next, it shifts into Daniel Running Bear, then into the face of his own mother. It's a grotesque, mocking dance designed to break his spirit. Taché holds firm, his voice steady, as he chants the ancient words, pushing back the darkness that threatens to consume him. With dawn's light just beginning to touch the horizon, Taché lures the Skinwalker to a sacred clearing known to his people, a place where the spiritual energy is strongest. He sets up a protective circle using the herbs given by Singing Crow, his every move deliberate and precise. The Skinwalker, now in its true form, A grotesque creature with hollow black eyes and limbs that seem to stretch unnaturally long paces at the edge of the circle. It snarls and hisses, but cannot cross the boundary Taché has set. For a moment, Taché feels victorious, but the creature's eyes lock onto his, and in that instant, he hears the truth. The Skinwalker speaks, not in a growl, but in a whisper that sounds like 100 voices layered upon one another. Your bloodline wronged me, Taché Greyfeather, it says. Your ancestors cursed me to this fate, betrayed me for their gain. I do not hunt your people out of malice. I seek only justice. Taché's hands tremble as he realizes that this creature's pain runs deeper than just vengeance. It's a cycle of hatred passed down through generations. His ancestors had condemned a shaman to this twisted existence, cursing them to live as a skinwalker for eternity. The Skinwalker's words strike deep into Taché's soul, and he hesitates. If he kills the creature, he risks perpetuating the curse his ancestors began. If he lets it live, it will continue its path of vengeance, tearing apart the community he has sworn to protect. In the silence of that sacred clearing, Taché remembers the last words his sister spoke before she died. Don't let the darkness consume you, Taché. We are more than the sins of our past. He takes a deep breath, feeling her spirit guiding him. Instead of striking with the blade, Taché changes his approach. He begins to chant a purification ritual, one that he learned from Singing Crow. The words spill out in a language older than the stones beneath his feet. A language that reaches beyond time and into the spirit realm itself. The Skinwalker screams, its shape flickering and fading as Taché's chants strip it of its power. The creature's form collapses, shrinking down into the broken, trembling figure of a man, a shaman cursed long ago. Tears stream down the man's face as he finally speaks with his own voice, hoarse and full of sorrow. Taché nods, completing the ritual. With one final breath, he releases the talisman into the air, its energy binding the curse and purifying the land. The shaman's body disintegrates into dust, carried away by the first light of dawn. The reservation feels different the next morning, calmer, more at peace. The elders remain silent about what happened, their expressions somber, yet relieved. Taché stands in the center of the village, the weight of the night's events pressing down on his shoulders. He knows that he has ended one chapter, but that the fight against the darkness is never truly over. As the sun rises over the desert, Taché looks out at his community with a sense of hope. He knows that breaking the cycle of hatred wasn't just about defeating the creature. It was about choosing compassion over vengeance, understanding over fear. His people see him differently now, not just as a young medicine man, but as a guardian who faced the darkness and chose light. And as the dust settles, Taché whispers a prayer to the spirits of his ancestors and to the memory of his sister, knowing that he has not only saved his people, but also brought peace to a soul long tormented by the sins of the past. The legend of the Skinwalker would live on in the stories they tell, not as a monster to be feared, but as a reminder of the consequences of anger and the power of redemption.